on the newsletter is deducted from, is deducted. So it's with the new residents finally on the list of people to get a newsletter to, it's 600, it is 300 a piece, $600. I'm rounding up a little bit, $600 a month to do the newsletter. So it's about 1/3 postage, 2/3 is the construction, paper, printing, folding, tabbing, etc. So they're still debating it, and meanwhile, I'm still pushing ahead as chair of the newsletter, pushing ahead with it, assuming that we're continuing like this. But if I don't know if the mayor, if you've gotten any kind of had any discussion with the Monica, the chair, the officer, right? So I don't know. We're going to start working on the next newsletter, which is April, but I just don't know if we're going to get pushback next week about, maybe we should just skip April. Now, obviously, that's not a good situation for the village if the MPCA says they want to skip. So, and the bigger picture here is that if MPCA, it depends on your, how do you look at what is the newsletter for, and how do people look at it, and 600 is a lot. If the village were to say, one of the things that we could do is say, well, the village will orchestrate the newsletter, and when MPCA has something they want to put in the newsletter, it would be like an advertisement, which they would pay for the ad depending on the size, and it would go in the newsletter, so that they could have the relief of not always having to pay for it when they don't feel like they have anything to advertise. Because not everyone feels this way, but the current officers in general seem to feel like if they're not posting a new event, why bother? And they don't seem to see a value in just the human interest articles and stuff like that are on that side. But I think in terms of the village side of things, I personally think there is a value to communicate with the residents on a monthly basis and to keep touch somehow. So, I think that's an important piece, but I don't know if, I know everyone in the community doesn't agree, because I'm sure there's people that don't read it. But I wondered from your all perspective, how important do you think it is for the village to touch base in the form of a newsletter on a monthly basis with the residents? Opening the floor.
I'll speak last. You guys go.
I think we should figure out a way to post it digitally. I know people like the paper copy. I think we should print off, I don't know, the first month, 50, maybe 100 of them.
But that's a good point, Mark. Could we back up, because that's what I'm talking about is more philosophically. Yes, I agree with what you're saying. No, that needs to be part of the conversation. But in terms of you're trying to, I think, address the cost, and what I just wanted to back further up and address the desire, to have monthly news communication.
Newsletter is good, and I can understand why MPCA doesn't necessarily want to have a monthly thing, because they don't have monthly events to talk about or monthly things they need to do.
Okay. And what about the village?
Yes, the village has more of a need to do a monthly newsletter and let the villagers know the comings and goings and whatnot.
Okay, and on that, do you feel like the one page that we have now, do you feel like it's adequate in addressing that need, or do you feel like a little more space would be desirable to get back to some of the things we used to do, like the mayor's court or police information, or etc.? Or do you think the one page do you think it crimps our style at all in terms of trying to communicate with the village?
I think the 4 pages essentially, because you have, your 2 pages front and back is enough. I'm not sure for what you're saying, because remember, I've only been in the village for like 3 years. You're saying that we used to do like police reports, like they do in the Columbus paper. So-and-so was in mayor's court for speeding, and so-and-so was, I don't
Well,
necessarily think.
no, I think well, again, it's what people think. It was basically in this area of Cleveland Avenue, there was a disorderly conduct, I'm just reading off this one, intoxication. While at the 2500 block of Wildwood at 8:56, on the 26th, there was a domestic dispute and theft reported.
Yeah, I don't think we need to put police reports in the weekly news, in the monthly newsletter.
Okay, but okay, so basically you understand MPCA's position, and you also believe that somehow either both paper and or electronically, somehow we should be doing something, the village should be doing something in terms of communicating on a monthly basis.
Yep.
Okay.
Well, I would agree with that. And I mean, theoretically, the purpose of communication by the village government is to inform the residents of what their government is doing. And, to put it just real basically. And, lots of commercial companies are offering people an option of whether to do something by hard paper or electronically. I don't know if we're geared up to do something like that, where we could, put the newsletter on our website, and then, limit the mailing to people that don't use computers.
Yeah, no, we're going to talk about that, right? So but you believe that it's important for the village to communicate on a monthly basis?
Well, it's hard to say monthly. I suppose there has to be some regularity to it. People look forward to that. Monthly sounds pretty right on to me. There may not be a lot to report on a monthly basis.
Well, and that is the thing is I think, and again, this is a matter of opinion, but I think the village, depending on how you look at what the village should be doing and what the village could be doing, or wants to do. So the inside of the newsletter now has a meet the neighbor. We inserted a meet the neighbor currently, and some other topical thing of interest, or maybe something someone was chatting about on Facebook that we turned into an article. And that's more of what will, I guess, in the newspaper business, you might call a human interest. So I guess my question would be also, do we think it's worthwhile? Because again, it's a matter of that additional folding out and having that page, is to add are those human interest stories also important to, and for the village to want to do, or is that just superfluous?
I think the human interest is, really basically a way to keep the community in touch with each other, as well as, the government informing them on what's going on. There are a lot of good human interest stories. Seems to me like some of that could be, if we had a method, that could be put on the website. Doesn't have to be in hard copy, because that requires photographs a lot of times, and sometimes interviews with people and things like that. I don't know how we'd go about that. People could submit things.
Yeah. Okay. But basically, so what you're saying is that you like the idea of the village also touching on the human interest areas, not just the mayor signed a check for $10 for pools today. You would like something more than that. So, Mark, what do you think?
No, I like some of, I don't always, care about those, but I really think, since part of what this newsletter is and part of what makes Minerva Park special is that sort of community feeling. Putting little soft human interest stories in there is a good idea.
Okay,
That sort of seems right up the village's alley.
okay, okay. And Mayor?
I'm gonna try to not get off topic, so yell at me when I do.
Yeah,
I
please try to
think-
stay on topic because you know, you tend to
I
talk long
always go
and then
on.
we run out of time, so.
It will always be about the newsletter. But here's what, to answer the first question, do I think that the village should do this on a monthly basis? Absolutely. I think being in there like I am, again, we get the phone calls. If our newsletter hasn't gone out on time, we do get phone calls. They want to know where their newsletter is. We have had people emailing us, or I'm sorry, not emailing us. We have had people calling us, advising us that they don't have internet, they don't have a computer, but they need to make sure that they get their directory, not trying to get off topic. And Diane is aware of that because they don't have email, they don't have that kind of stuff. And we are tending to forget that that is still a large part of our community. Just because you like electronic doesn't mean that we do not have a large group of residents that we could potentially be missing. With that being said, $600 is a very small amount to communicate to your residents. And this is where I'm not going to get too far because I'm going to let you get there first, Diane. Allowing people to opt out is a nightmare. And to answer Joe's question, he said, I don't know if we have I don't know if you use the word resource or the technology or exactly what you said. I was trying to think about what you said. My answer to that question is absolutely not. I think, when you start allowing people to opt out of a print copy, you could potentially be missing a resident with some very valuable information. I would never remember to go check the website for the April newsletter because it should hit about the 5th. People change email addresses. We know that. My husband couldn't get into his email, so he created a new one. If that's where the newsletter's going, do you think he's going to remember to call you and tell you that he got a new email address? Because you're not on the top of his list, I promise you that. So I just think I think it's going to be a natural disaster. This is our number one way we know we are getting information to our residents. And if it's not broke, don't fix it. If you want an electronic copy, I think you should be able to get one. And to answer the question, it is absolutely on our website. But just don't forget, if you opt out at an address, who's going to opt in that address or know that there's a newsletter that they're missing? How are we going to find that address when you move that you aren't getting a newsletter and a new resident could be there for 2 years before somebody realizes there's a new resident? Because we have rental properties. I don't want to go into all that. It's a train wreck. This is our number one way of communicating to our residents. And here's what I will say. We have it budgeted. There is absolutely no way in this world I will fight tooth and nail to keep this newsletter, period, end of story, at least for my term. I will fight to keep the newsletter because I know how important it is to residents, and I'm warning you on that.
Well, I sure hope I didn't imply that we shouldn't
No,
have
I
a
don't think
newsletter.
anybody did. Nobody did. And I'm all for electronic copies. I think if people want to opt in, but that doesn't mean you're not going to get a print copy in the mail. And I understand it's a waste of money in some people's minds. And in my mind is missing a house is not for, I'm going to move on, but this is one topic I will fight tooth and nail to make sure that every single resident is delivered a newsletter every single month, want it or not, because they might open it up and find something that they actually are interested in. And now what we do inside the newsletter, I'm definitely open. I'm also open for, if MPCA is not going to join with us, can we do advertisements to help offset some of the cost? I don't know any of that stuff, and I am so open for all of that. But I think delivering something into everybody's mailbox, I am here to say I will fight tooth and nail to make sure that happens through mine, because I feel like that is my number one form of communication. If nothing else, I can say, you know what, it was in the newsletter and you were delivered that. And that's all I have to say. Keep going.
I have no disagreement with that. I think it should be universal, complete coverage.
Yeah. And again, I think giving people an electronic copy is just and I think it's great because I think it's another way that it might capture more people I know I get 1,000 newsletters from every travel board in the world, and I don't read that stuff. I get so much in my email. I would never, I delete them, but I subscribe to them, but I never.
Well, I was thinking more specifically, like not uh, eliminating the newsletter and the hard copy, but maybe adding it to the website.
Oh, it's on the website.
Website, Joe.
It's on the website. It's always,
Yeah.
it's
I
really good
should look
about
at the
putting it out
website
there.
more often.
Yeah, well, I think that is, in terms of communication, not to get off topic, I think that is something where we need to work on that. First of all, we have to make people want to go to the website, and then, but we need to talk it out. We need to drive people to the website. And then when they get there, we need to have something that's worth looking at. If that's a goal. If it's not, it's not. So it is just a village website. They tend to be boring. So ours is at least tidy now. At least it's tidy. I really like that. So anyway, I will say thank you, Mayor. I'm excited to hear that, because I think it's really important too. So so we are looking at, I don't know about the split with MPCA, but we are looking at, we do have someone that's helping me with advertising. And he is, we're going to try to, the thing is you can't get good advertisers, solid advertisers, except for, more than the business card things, unless you're guaranteeing them that newsletter is going out
Right.
821 households every month. You have to be able to say that, and it has to be right. And if you can do that, and if we have the guarantee from the mayor that'll happen, then I think we can definitely get advertisers to offset some of the costs. Now, we don't want to take up a whole page,
Right.
I think, because
Right.
that takes,
Right.
but a half a page on the inside and then whatever else on the outside. We could definitely do a feature article, advertiser,
Right.
and an issue, and take that space. And at least I think we can get to, we got to warm people back up again to that we're really going to do this. So really got to be consistent. But we ought to be able to do around $200 offset once we get going.
And I think that's just it. I wouldn't want to step on MPCA's toes if they continue to proceed and do theirs every single month. I mean, and I would say this, I wouldn't try to change, do anything that would offset the, change their costs and where we're at right now or anything like that. I wouldn't want to add pages. I would, if it's not broke, don't fix it. But I feel like if we end up doing this on our own, because the next part to the whole MPCA, and I don't want to call it a breakup because we're not, I think there's probably a fair way to say this and a fine line to say this, but I don't think the village should be spending $600 and letting them piggyback off of our discount. I think at that point, if they want to do every other month, they should be doing their own, and we should go ahead and let them do their own, and we would do our own with our own advertisers and do our thing that way. I don't know your feelings towards it, but I just feel like, yes, it would help them, but I feel like it would be more of a train wreck of every other month. It just would get confusing, I think, for residents as to why it's like this and why we don't have all of this stuff in here. And, we don't like the newsletter every other month or every other month it's boring type thing because they don't have MPCA stuff in there. And so I think it would be confusing for residents to understand that. So at that point, I think it would really just be a village newsletter every month and then let MPCA do their own thing. We did it because it worked seamlessly last year, and they need to make their decision.
Yeah, I think that, well, as far as I'm concerned, I think we're getting it out, we're getting it out on time, and continuing as if they wanted to continue as is, I'm fine with that. But if they don't want to continue, that what I'm saying is they can also choose to do an occasional newsletter on their own, sure, if they wanted to. But we could also allow them to be, if they wanted to advertise an event, let's say the Sarah's Art in the Park, if they wanted to, just because we're selling ad space, it would be cheaper if they did a $50 or $100 ad in the village newspaper and it looked like an ad from the community. So it would look
It's a good
separate.
idea. It's a really good idea.
Then they could do that, or they could choose to say, no, we're just gonna do a newsletter. So, but it would be a choice, and they would just be like they were advertising. We give them a choice if they wanted to spend less money or they didn't have quite enough to
Right.
build one of their own, then they could, it would be a choice.
I'm open for all the suggestions. I think the only thing I don't want to debate is whether or not we're going to send one out every month. And other than that,
Yeah,
I'm
no,
so
great.
open. Yeah, I really am. I think trying to
All
make
right.
it easy for MPCA to, I want them to be able to, I just think it would be very difficult for us, confusing to the residents and difficult for Inskeep trying to figure out if they're waiting for stuff. Like at that point, I think it needs to be separate, but yeah, adding ads or something like that. I mean, I want to be able to be there to support them. I wouldn't have an issue, even for free, putting their stuff on, just on like a basic little calendar. If we had like our own little calendar of events, and started doing
Sure.
something like that, just like Easter egg hunt. Now I wouldn't go into detail, but just like a little calendar of events and having, but again, I would, I think everybody knows that I really do want to support them, but when it becomes confusing, I think that's where we have to say,
Yeah, okay. Well, we'll see how the meeting goes next month. I don't
Right.
know. I'm, all right, so that's great. So now, in terms of the newsletter, I don't know if Mark and Joey, you have looked at the last, we've done 3 now, January, February, 2.
we're on 3.
We're on the 3rd one? We're on the, okay, so
Yeah,
we've done a couple now. If you've had a chance to look at them, can you give me any feedback about what you've seen that you like or you don't like, or what you'd like to see fill the space?
It seemed to have fine information in there. The chocolate covered bugs and the meet your neighbor and we don't have much of a speeding problem, so settle yourselves down. Tiffany went and grabbed hers, mine somewhere around here. I don't know.
Yeah, I think on the in the old green guy that we did, we had the only other thing we had was we did a financial thing. I think, Joe, you were at one time saying that certain residents would like a little more financial information. Can you be more specific about that?
Well, that's just comments that I got from some people that pay a lot of attention to what we're doing, in the community. And the kind of what they said was financial was last. They were saying they'd like to know more about scheduling and planning. And I know there's
Scheduling and
people
planning.
that have more of an interest in that than others.
Well, if okay, well, let's just put it this way. In terms of setting up space, of course, some months have more information, less room than others. But if either of you can think of something you'd like to have recurring either monthly or quarterly, some kind of monthly or quarterly update on something in the village, whether it's planning and maybe a planning, and because the mayor talks about planning, or do you see, I don't tend to read your report all the way through, Tiffany, because I've been in so many meetings. I
know.
But do you tend to cover planning and zoning, or is that an area of opportunity for us to?
Just as an FYI, the only thing I talked about this month in my mayor's report was Westerville City Schools has started the process for building the new middle school. So yes, I do try to hit anything and everything that I feel like might trigger people, and I don't mean it like that, trigger people to like have a conversation, like, or at least, again, I think one of the big ways that I use the newsletter is so I can say, it was in the newsletter. So when I've had people ask questions, we didn't know that there was a new school coming. This is probably since January of last year. I don't want to exaggerate, but go through and you're probably going to see Westerville City Schools between the elementary and middle school mentioned at least 3 times, if not 4. So yes, I do use it for that reason. And I don't want to make it sound like I'm trying to throw it in people's faces, but I do think that is the most valuable place where we can put things that typically residents are most interested in, something that's going to change a large avenue. I mean, we did talk about the pool quite a bit, just, we're getting a new baby pool because again, 50% of the people couldn't care less. But there are people that are, they really want to know where their money's being spent. Having these new schools is going to be a lot of traffic. The basketball court has generated a lot of topic, whether good, bad, or indifferent. So I try to talk about the big things that are going on. I will promise you the lake conversation has been in my report again, probably no less than 4 or 5 times, and sewer no less than 4 or 5 times. I typically don't use the mayor's report as a fluff thing, like, whatever. I've done it once and that was really to fill space. And it was just, more about like the end of year, happy holidays type things and trying to tell everybody how wonderful our administration is because they really are. But normally it's not really any fluff. It's more straight to the point about projects, planning and zoning type things. And that's it. I mean, I really do just try to hit sewers, lakes, pools, Westerville schools, basketball court, like the big things like that. What's coming? The building has been mentioned numerous times. So yeah, I would say yes.
And real quick, just on the website, because I thought, oh, I don't have my paper copy. I'll go to the website and get it.
Might not be there yet.
Well, not at all. Last November and December aren't in the 220 archive, the 2020 archive yet.
Okay.
And only January has been posted for 2021.
And again, this is where I tell you guys, and I think I said this last night. I can't remember if I said it to finance or who I said. It might have been planning and zoning. I will let her know that because again, this is Lisa's first.
Oh yeah,
not
this is
even
the
full month yet.
the
So
person who used to do it to the new person. Yeah, that
Yep.
makes perfect sense. But I wanted to get it
Absolutely.
written down so we could do the reminder.
Absolutely.
Especially as some of those get pushed into the archive. And then, 20 years from now, people go like, what the heck were those guys doing that they've left that 4 months?
Does anybody know if they have a copy of, Diane, would you happen to have one of November, December? I don't know that I have one. I might just have to go through Becky's old emails
Uh,
because you wouldn't have an electronic copy, would you?
November and December. Let me check.
Okay,
Um,
see if you,
Because when they were transferring the stuff to me, they probably gave me a couple of samples, so
okay,
I might have them.
Okay.
I know I have I guess January was the first one I did, so that was the Festival of Delights
okay,
results and things like
Okay.
that. So, but I remember seeing the November and December. And I would have probably seen them electronically, but I'll double check that. If not, I could probably approach Jean.
okay. Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
either
keep a file of every newsletter that I've received since I moved to the village.
Well,
I-
If you
If
need
you
them,
If you could scan them into a PDF, we could probably post it that way, except yours aren't in color. They're not quite as nice in color, but at least we could get, the worst case scenario is we would need to scan them and create PDFs to post.
Paula might even have, I guarantee between Jean.
Yeah,
might
Paula has
have-
it. I just didn't want to bother her first.
Okay, yeah. No, let me see
She's
if it's
really
on.
busy.
We have Becky's old email, so she has to have it. So
Yeah,
we
think
just
so.
have to go back and get it. So I will do, thank you, Mark. I will make sure those get up there tomorrow.
are you looking for to see a copy of November?
They're
No,
not
we're-
uploaded to the
We're
website.
looking to post it to the website. We want to post
Oh.
a copy to the website. So we need a PDF. And, when Paula gives us from Inkscape, the printer, when the printer gives us the paper copies, of course, they're black and white, but she always gives us a color one. So that we can post one in color. Okay. Did we lose you, Mark, or did you? I guess we lost Mark.
You did not lose me. The wife just came home. She was up visiting her new niece who got born the other day.
Oh, nice.
So you did not lose me. I was
You were
close
just,
enough that I could hear you saying, "Did we lose you?"
I'm sorry about that. So, yeah, well,
Joe has all the copies of the newsletter on file since he moved here.
so anyway, I think baby news is always important. So, yeah. Hopefully you got some good picks. All right. Okay. So newsletter. Okay. I wanted to let you know, though, this is, I mentioned the mayor. I volunteered to do the directory this year. And now we have this wonderful Excel spreadsheet of 821 residents. And not all, there's about 10 that are questionable in terms of if there's anybody really living there or not, but 821. And it's really kind of exciting because the street reps went around and got email addresses. So we have, not that people answer their email, because a lot of times they don't, but we got about 300, let's see, about 300 people gave us their email addresses. So, there's other opportunities perhaps to how to communicate with people. So it's a good start for a database. I just hated, it was an awful wreck. And Shelley Biba actually went to the auditor site and kept downloading real estate information in order to get names to put in this directory. Because we've had so many new people and people changing over. And so it's at the printer now. I'm hoping they're getting ready to. It's kind of a challenge because it has to be, there was a tight budget on the number of pages it could be, so it had to be shrunk down a bit. But this is it. And I have a printed copy, not stapled or anything. It has to be black and white, unless Paula, I think Paula might actually cave, and Inskeep might actually do a color cover, but I'm not sure. I'm just on the fence about that. But anyway, I know that we are asking people if they want electronic or whatever. But I guess my point is on this is when I'm asking people right now if they want electronic or paper, it's giving us an opportunity to ferret out some of those people who really want to have paper. And these are also people that are usually not necessarily, but more senior people. And I think getting this subset of people and finding out who there are could help us as a community, as a village, kind of learn how to communicate best with individual residents. And so when so we can not neglect people who don't get on Facebook, just so we're not neglecting that group of people. So anyway, that's my personal thing on communication, is communicating people the way they want to be communicated with will bring the community together a little bit better. So anyway, I have this Excel spreadsheet with all the names, addresses, and for those people who wanted to provide phone numbers, and not everybody did, and email addresses. And this, whether they're paid members of MPCA or not, which is an MPCA thing. So that should be getting out to people. So the electronic copy is already ready. So when people say they email me and say they want the electronic copy, I send it to them. So I am doing that. But we are going to get a number printed. And so we have the paper copies. So that's out there. But the village is what I'm saying. We've got the spreadsheet. The village could use the spreadsheet in various ways. So I appreciate that Tiffany wants to continue to mail, and my husband disagrees with you, John. He actually said everybody should get a piece of paper that they can decide whether to toss, keep, or read. And that's what we should be doing. So he agrees with you, Tiffany, on that one. So
Yay!
so anyway, but if we want to, in terms of other types of communication, it is the website has the ability to. There's two things. It has the ability to create forms. Right now, we're only creating one form that I can find, and that form is a. I'm going to be out of town. Can you check and drive by my residence for me? It's a form. It actually looks like an Adobe form, but it's a form. And what we could do in terms of trying to keep the name and address stuff fresh, I'm not saying it's not a perfect solution, but we can create a form. This is according to the vendor. We can create a form that's a self-service form that people can residents can go in and update their form, and it allows them to put name, address, or change name, address, or whatever. And that creates a database in the cloud, which is what I much prefer than having it on my laptop. So it's cloud-based, and you can download either Excel or a CSV file if you want to do additional work on it. So that's one, and that wouldn't cost the village any money, just the time it would take to create the form. The second thing, which I think is a good idea, I'd like to I'm not asking for a yes or no at this point, just to think about that. And the other thing that we can do is for, I think it's $600, we can have a subscribe. And this is what Mark, you and Joe were talking about. We can have a subscribe. So you can, it's a self-service again. So a resident goes in, puts in their email address. And then what we have is we have a form that has checkboxes, and it says, anytime you send out a newsletter, notify me or send me an electronic copy. Anytime you're going to talk about the municipal pool and there's any ordinance or whatever, then they check a box. And then when something's posted to the website that's related to the pool, that subscriber gets a notice to go and take a look. So it's a way of communicating, I think, that and a self-subscribe, so we don't care if they do or they don't. But it gives them
a month, $100 a year, or what is it?
it's $60, $600. I think it's one time, but maybe it's once a year, but it's not once a month.
Yeah, sign up for anything, we should do that.
Does that sound like fun? I mean, I think that, and then we can decide what we want to link to. And if you post it to the website and you create that, when you're creating the form, you say, anytime I post anything with this, so notify this person.
So we could have a notification application.
Yeah.
It sounds like a good idea to me.
And, the thing is our obligation then is to make sure that we're updating the website on a timely basis, and that's about it. And then I don't know, at some point you might have to clean out old junk emails or something, I don't know. But anyway, what do you think, Mayor?
I agree. I like the idea.
Okay, so I will contact the customer service rep. They gave me the information to contact. I'll contact him, see what else, if they have any other information to share.
Okay.
It's very simple. They don't have they have these little, not YouTube, but like YouTube videos saying, here's how you do this part. And then
Right.
They don't have ones that go, big picture, here it is. Otherwise, I'd tell you where that is, but they didn't have a big picture one. They just have pieces and parts. And
Right.
you're trying to envision what the final thing looks like. But anyway, so I'll get with the customer as the next step. I'll get with the customer service
Okay.
rep and see about that.
And then
And
just
just
as
Out
FYI,
of curiosity, is the notification an email, a text?
It's
Is-
email. It's just
Email, okay.
And then my only thing for that is, we only have X amount budgeted for the year for the newsletter. So we would need to do a supplemental appropriation when we get to that point, if council wants to approve it. Because we just need to do that because I don't have any money in there. I won't have enough money in there. So, and that's just for you guys. So yeah, you guys will just all have to be on board for it.
Is that the supplemental appropriation for the newsletter printing or just what?
No, we should have, I'm assuming we didn't lower the newsletter. I hope we didn't lower the newsletter, based on, projections that we were expecting. It is what it is. No, but for the newsletter or for the website, it was X amount of dollars for the next 4 years or whatever. So we,
Okay,
so
we
if it
didn't put
goes up-
anything. Okay,
Malady,
we
have to pay
did,
for it.
we did do a little cushion, but I don't think we did it up to 600. I do remember doing a little cushion per year in case there was, something, but I can verify, but I'm assuming, I normally don't bump up that much higher. I think it was probably 400 or 500. So
Okay.
I'm just, and if you guys are all on board, it's your thing. So, I'm totally fine with it. So as long as, you guys got 4 votes, we'll just have to do it to bump up. And I can verify. I mean, I'll make sure Leah doesn't have enough money in there to cover a $600 increase, but I'm concerned that there won't be a $600 increase in there.
okay, all right. All right, and meanwhile, I'll get you that information.
Yeah.
So, okay. Okay, so that was the second item. And it is 7:43. So, is there anything else at this point that we want to talk about? Do we want to spend 15 minutes just talking about what else? Does anyone have a specific idea about communications in the village? Any particular a pet idea you have for some new or some revised or some, I don't know.
People have heard me say this before. I keep reading research, especially some significant stuff that came out of Harvard that says that residents, communities prefer to, have an audience-centric type of communication as opposed to real dry government reports. And, that's simply kind of more of an angle of how to say things than what it is you say.
I totally agree with you. And I think if going forward, if for example, if Tiffany has something, well, I think one of the ways to use that idea is if Tiffany in her mayor's report says something about the pool, then and she felt it's really important, but it's buried in her report. Maybe somebody doesn't read that far down. Then we could have a complimentary article on the other side of the page going. We could even do, I mean, I have 3 people that help with the newsletter. So we could have one of them talk to a few residents going, what do you think about that idea, that thing that's going to happen? What's your opinion on that? Do a little resident opinion piece or hit it from a different angle or a more folksy kind of, or a conversational type basis.
Well, if we had the ability, we could use links and, where something's mentioned could say for more information, and then link something to the website.
That's true too. That's always a good idea.
It is always a good idea, but I think that the hard part about that is then you have residents feeling like they can't get the information because they don't have
Because they
internet.
don't
and
have it.
So, I mean, and just be careful when we do that because we do I also am one that forgets. And Diane, I'll be the first to say when we were talking about, like the different options for people when they call in and, there's different things that I forget because I want a directory in print. Like, I don't want to have to go to my phone and scroll through and I just want to be able to pull out a book, open it up. And I am still old school when it comes to that. But everything I do is on the computer. I mean, I'm on the computer and on my phone 23 hours a day, probably. I mean, so I forget that there's people it still blows my mind. Even my mom's on the computer. So, it blows my mind to hear people say, I don't have an email address. or I don't have internet. And I'm like, huh?
Right.
But we have more than one. We have probably more
do.
than we do. So I don't want them to feel like they're missing some big story. And the other part to that, and this is the thing that you will hear more than anything, and this again shocks me. I don't have people that have internet. I don't have Facebook. And all I want to say is, oh man, I just wish for 1 week, I just want to go without Facebook. And it's a habit, I get it. But you know, there's a lot of people that are on, that have email, that have all of that, that got no interest in the drama. So again, I think we refer a lot to Facebook because everybody knows, where do I go to post
Well,
something quick?
Right. And that's why I try to look at Facebook to see if there's anything, if there's like 64 replies on something,
Right.
if there's that much interest, then I like to fold it in on the newsletter side for those people who don't have Facebook and didn't get a chance to.
That's a good
So
idea.
that's certainly a goal on
Right.
for us to
And
do that.
I think the other part for the newsletter is I do feel like the Debbie Downer every once in a while when I do have to put things like when there's a level 1 snow emergency or greater. My goal, you know, once we get past where we're at right now, but a lot of people got away with a lot of stuff over the last year. And meaning parking in the street, not moving their car, absolutely refusing to move their cars out of the street. You know, there's giving people a little bit of slack is one thing, but things like this are going to be a fair warning. They're going to be posted in the newsletter, and then the officers are going to be allowed to ticket. I mean, there's certain things that are, you know, that are safety issues, problems, concerns. We have a lot of new residents that don't know the rules and regulations, and this is just more of like an educational type thing over the next couple months. We're going to do the warnings again about the high grass, like, and again, that's why the newsletter is so important to me. If people choose not to read it and throw it in the trash, like you're aware, that's on them. But this is kind of going to be one of your, like, this is your warning, and take it, because we're not going to do this, you know, oh, no. I mean, there are people that are upset that people were not moving their cars. There are people that are upset last year, obviously, with high grass. We're not going to play the game of letting people get away with it for a long time. These are going to be your warnings. This is going to be, you know, we're going to ask nicely the first time. And then unfortunately, because as much as I like to be nice about it, I get twice as many complaints from other people that are tired of it.
We do this is totally off topic because this is a streets discussion, but with the snow and the car, you know, you get 1 or 2 along the length of the street, no parking during snow emergency.
Right.
Violators will be towed, and people will only park during a snow emergency once.
And you are correct, and that is actually what we are discussing. We've already gotten the signage, and we are going to be bringing that to, because it's probably something we don't have enough to do in the entire area and the entire village, without coming to you guys first, because it's going to be pretty expensive. But just so you know, and I'm going to say it because I walked in the new village, or in the new section, and this is not necessarily, we're getting off communication, so let me hurry. I walked through there, and I was shocked at the amount of people that did not shovel their sidewalks, which was a pure sheet of ice. And we're talking well over 2, 3, 4, 2-3 inches all packed down. It was extremely dangerous to walk through there. Now, mind you, we didn't do ours either. And you guys know my pet peeve about that. But we don't, we'll discuss that later. But the amount of cars that were still in the roads that you couldn't get around, and it's horrible. It was horrible. You're leaving it to where it's just not safe, and no parking signs is needed everywhere in a snow emergency.
Do we have a contract with the tow company?
We do. We actually do.
I figured we did.
Yeah, we do.
All right. Well,
I'll say one more thing in real
Okay.
general terms, along with the audience-centric idea. The research also says that attraction goes a lot further than promotion.
what
And
does?
that's attraction goes a lot further than promotion and getting community involvement whether it be the, hard copy newsletter or the website, Facebook, or any of it.
Well, that's what I was thinking. If we do the subscribe, and where people email in, that's one, the newsletter is another volunteer. We could actually have one for volunteer or whatever. Volunteer opportunities, email, notify me whenever there's a volunteer opportunity.
We're gonna
would
have
be
a
a
lot of those coming up.
really good thing to do. And it's just, everybody needs reminders. I mean, everyone is last minute. People don't even RSVP to weddings from family members anymore because they want to wait till the last minute to see what else they got going on. So, I mean, it's just the way it is. So reminders and more than one type of reminder is, all those things are repeat. Some people can't make up their mind till they hear something 6 times, I think it is. So that's the marketing thing that they say. So anyway, yeah, communication. So
It's called advertising clutter.
noise,
It does take
advertising
6
noise.
times for somebody to see an ad on TV before it influences them. That's why you see the ads being played over and over and over.
Over and over and over, yeah. So fortunately, there's mute and there's fast forward. Thank goodness for that. So, I live by fast forwarding. So,
I do too.
all right. Well, I think we can call it a wrap this time, and we will let's see what happens as a newsletter, and we'll get the directory out. By the way, I've gotten I have gotten people emailing. The directory at mympca.org comes to me, and there are about 25 people who have responded, and 51 electronic and 21 paper. That's how we're. So I'm thinking though that it's biased because the people who read the paper newsletter are also probably paper people, right? And everybody else is.
I did an email. I want a hard copy.
And how many are we printing in this initial run?
Well, I am waiting for the final quote. The defining factor, unfortunately, is that the MPCA has told me there's a budget of $600, and that's it. So that technically would pay for 350 paper books. So I'm kind of like waiting to see how this is falling out, because I think the MPCA really was praying and hoping that more people would choose electronic.
I think if you put 350
Well,
paper,
every time I try and go paperless, I have to pull out a notepad and a pencil.
all said and done.
I'm
Diane,
sorry, Mark.
Books are really not that, I mean, in the big scheme of things, the booklets are like $2.86 a piece to print.
I'm just saying, I think if you print 350 of them, you're going to be surprised at how many you have left when everyone who wanted a paper copy got one.
Well, yes, I would agree with you that That's what MPCA is thinking. So I don't know. I'm going to try to, I would love to it's just that Inkscape is kind of like, they're very good to us over there, honestly. But if I would prefer to order 100 at a time, but they might not like that just because it's a lot of work. So just to start them over again. But anyway, we'll see. I haven't pulled the trigger. It's like everybody, no one wants to make this decision, and so they're kind of leaving me holding the bag, so to speak, in terms of the number to print. But anyway, we'll see. Obviously we need to I want to be practical. I hate to waste paper. But the problem this year is that the street reps went around, and the ones that talked to people said, you get a directory. This $20 pays for a directory. And so there are 370 people who actually paid dues. So is it really an obligation? Do people really care? Were they listening? Do they care? Are they?
I care, and I will tell you that the phone calls that we've had care, and
Yeah.
the people that have stopped by care, the voicemail that you heard just the day you walked in, that's not the only one.
Yeah,
They do.
no.
I think you guys are completely mistaken. I think if you came down my street, I don't think you would get more than 5 that wanted it electronically. And how many houses are, I don't see it. I think 90% of the people on my street would want a print copy.
Now, I will
Yeah,
say that
I
it's,
get print copies of everything if you want what I actually do in life.
well, you could email me, you could email directory@mympca.org just to make it official. But
I am gonna make it, I will do it
I'll
right
not-
now.
all
I
right.
have somebody that I want to ask you because they came in specifically and asked, and I'm curious if they're one of the ones, but I don't want to say the name on here. But I
Okay.
know someone that wants a hard copy that came in, and you should have something from him because he brought in a paper or something written that he was putting in the mailbox that said he wanted a printed
Oh,
copy.
right, right. And that was the original instruction is for,
Okay.
I didn't know
I
if
want to make
anyone
sure
had
you
actually
got his on
go
there.
to that length to do that.
Okay.
But I've got to get in that mailbox to see if there's anything else in there.
Okay. I'll ask you about this particular person because I want to make sure he made the list because he physically came in.
And you don't have a key to the MPCA mailbox, right? Right. So I'm waiting to get that. To see if anybody
Well,
actually
there's only
can.
370 of them. If we only have 300
What's
If we
that?
only have 370 people who signed up, the most we need is 370.
Right.
Because if you're not an MPCA member, you don't get one.
Well, unless you want to pay
$20 and be a member, then
$10,
yeah.
well, $10. They told people that if you want to buy one, just the directory, it's $10. So
Yeah,
I
there
don't
you
know
go.
who's going to pay $10. I think one or two people said they would pay $10 for a directory. But I would be kind of embarrassed handing them the directory for $10.
I would be too.
honestly.
Maybe
It's a
they'll take it
fundraiser.
electronically.
Fundraiser.
But the electronic,
$5 for a $2 box of cookies. Come on.
yeah, you have to say it's a charitable contribution, $10.
Yeah,
It's a directory and it's a charitable. You got to say something like that because it's not
Well,
worth $10. But
But in the grand scheme of things, it is. I mean, let's just be honest. I mean, for
I
me,
mean,
I
my
contribute.
time was well over $10 a
Correct.
book,
So,
and Shelley's time was well
Yeah.
over $10.
and I agree. I mean, I do agree with that. Like, I don't give when I view it as when I give my $10 or my $20, I don't have kids involved. My kids have never gone to any one of the Minerva Park events. So that's not a bragging right thing, but we're busy. Like, my kids are in sports year round. We're never going to go to one of those things. My kids are now older. Again, I think there were 19 kids involved in the Valentine party. I think the majority of the 370 members are more. The hard part that I have, and this is we shouldn't even be talking. I'm not going to go there. My view is for the person like me, I'm not probably going to go to the arts thing, even though I think it's a great thing for residents. I wasn't available last year. I mean, it's so hard for me to do stuff like that. I do it for the simple fact it supports the village. And I like the newsletter, and I like and it helps support those events. So I think that's the thing that, hopefully I know they're keeping that in mind, that there are 370 members, like you just said, and look at how many of the kids are participating in the different, holiday events, and how many families are, attend family fun night. And I think last year you can't judge, obviously. So moving forward, hopefully they'll be able to gauge how many people are participating in certain things and how many members we have and why are they contributing? Like, what is our purpose?
Right.
So
Right.
hopefully that is what they're doing, because again, the majority of the residents over on this side are probably contributing. But I will also say I highly doubt any of them are involved in any of the activities. Maybe I'm wrong, but I'm guessing no. But I want my newsletter, and I want my directory. I'm gonna email you right now, though.
Okay.
Don't hang up. I
All
want
right.
to stop this and ask you about one person, because I
Right.
want to make sure.
All right, everybody.
All right. See
Thanks.
ya.